You tell yourself it's just another night, the kind you can carry home on your shoulders without it noticing the weight. Midnight has rinsed the city of its colors. Down by the river, the lamps look like tired coins, their light bent by a dampness that never leaves. The market has folded itself into blue tarps and twine. Two old men share the last plastic chair outside a shuttered tea stall, heads bowed as if listening to the ground. Incense from a roadside shrine threads the air with a sweetness that almost covers diesel and fish and rain-wet concrete. Your meter blinks in the dash. A tiny red heartbeat, 000. You tap it out of habit, then tap it again because habit likes witnesses. On the far bank, half erased by trees, the mansion sits with a patience that feels personal. People call it the French house, though no one remembers a French name, only stories that have learned how to survive by losing details. From here, its roofline is a broken jaw behind banyan and tamarind, an outline you could draw with your eyes closed. In daylight, kids point and dare each other to say the gate's name out loud. At night, the river looks wider in front of it. You rub your eyes. The radio isn't a radio tonight, just a mouthful of static that sometimes pretends to be a love song. You think about turning it off and leaving the city to its own sounds. You think about your wife, face turned to the wall to keep the fan's breath from drying her throat. You think about the quiet you promised her. You think of small things because small things are the only ones that obey. A figure steps from a side alley where it should be too dark to step from. No hand waves, no whistle. He simply lets your headlights find him and lifts one arm the way a man greets a taxi he ordered an hour ago. The beam takes his shape and fails to return anything worth keeping. Dark jacket, white shirt that isn't quite white, hair trimmed close, a face that looks smooth and wrong in the light, like someone sanded corners off a photograph. He is tall in the way. Space makes a man tall when it decides to move out of his way. Your right hand is already on the gear. The car rolls forward because the car knows what to do with a figure like this, even if you don't. The back door opens on a draft of water-cold air, silt and something metallic, as if the river has teeth and breath. He slides in with no creak, no shuffle. The dome light pops on and the cab becomes tiny, the way a room does when a doctor tells you to sit down. He folds his hands together, fingers interlaced like someone taught him how to wait properly, and looks at nothing. Where to? You ask. The gate, he says, voice low and even, the syllables soft enough to fall between things without leaving marks. Which gate? He turns his head toward the window, toward the water. Across. That single word is heavier than it should be. There are many gates in this city, but at night, there is only one that can make a single word feel like a place. You press the meter, grateful for a button you can see work. The red LED blinks awake. 0 becomes 1 and steadies your hands. The tires hiss on damp road. Mopeds sleep in a leaning herd along the curb, helmets hung like fruit from handlebars. A dog in a doorway watches you pass and decides not to bark. Your passenger gives you nothing to fill the mirror, no fidgeting, no throat clearing, no brief, surrendered smile when a man realizes the night is being kind to him. Only that clean cold that makes you think of metal kept underwater. Late to be going that way, you say, as if the sentence could put something harmless in the cab. Silence then? Everyone goes that way. Eventually, you almost laugh. Almost. The radio finds a station for 3 notes of a chorus you recognize and then loses it again. You reach to turn the dial to prove your hands still belong to you. Leave it, he says. Not a command, a request that slides under your ribs and sits. You take the long road beside the river because there is always a long road if you need breath. The water is a black road traveling the other direction at the same speed. You know where the embankment dips and the wind lifts the surface into small teeth. You know where the municipal lights put teeth on the concrete, where your shocks complain, where fishermen will be by sunrise with foam boxes and cigarettes. You know this road like you know your wife's night breath, But the night is making new rules. You want to ask his name. You want to ask if he has people waiting. You want to ask if he carries keys or belongs to the kind of man who never needs them. Name? You manage, pretending the word is casual, a long breath. No one keeps their names out there. Out where? You say, though you know. Beyond the gate, your fingers tighten on the steering wheel enough to make the rubber squeak. The sound is too loud. You smile because men smile when they don't know what to do with their faces. He does not. Past the ferry landing, the rope thick with algae and salt prayers. The little kiosk shuttered, its sign washed twice a year by floodwater and left to peel itself thin. In daylight, boys will throw stones and claim the river took them unfairly. Now the ferry is a dark animal at rest, chains sleeping in slack loops. The water is flat where it should wrinkle. The air is wrong and you tell yourself it isn't. You have people there. You try again, failing at silence. Everyone has people there, he says, and in your mirror, just for a second, his mouth seems to shape a smile that might be kindness, might be something that has learned to look like it. The lane to the gate narrows like a throat. The tea stall by day is a folded table now, blue chairs stacked so carefully you think about the woman's hands, how many times she has balanced plastic into towers that never fall. The smell of jasmine gone flat clings to the wall like old tape. Beyond the bend, a little kink the town makes because it decided the road ends here, is iron and chain. You stop a car's length back because you were raised right, and iron deserves respect. The gate is taller than memory when you sit in front of it. 2 leaves, bars bent into old curbs, paint the green of hospital walls after a storm. Flakes showing brown underneath like the gate is growing its own bark. A heavy chain joins the handles. The padlock is the size of a child's fist and wears lichen where corners should be. Through the bars, gravel choked in weeds, a drive you'd need a machete to convince. And then the mansion, set deeper than any map draws it. Roofline swallowed by trees whose roots have learned the shape of brick. You glance in the mirror to tell him the fare.
He is already pushing the door open. Do you want me to keep the engine running?
You hear yourself ask. You hate the way the question leaves your mouth. Too quick to be useful. Too soft to be professional. You can turn it off, he says, already outside.
Already standing where your lights catch the iron and scatter? You kill the engine and the quiet makes your ears ring.
The world swells to fill the space you made by silencing the car. Cicadas begin, a sound like rain pretending to be metal, and then stop as if someone has lifted a hand. Somewhere upriver, a boat coughs once and decides against moving. Your breath becomes the loudest thing you own. He walks to the gate and stops without touching it. He doesn't try the chain. He doesn't peer through the bars. He inclines his head the way a man greets a friend behind the door who is deciding whether to open it. You think of temples and thresholds and the way your grandmother told you to never step across a sill with your left foot first. You cannot remember if tonight was left or right. You watch because watching is what you do, mirrors, blind corners, other people's carelessness. But this is watching with your skin, with the small muscles at the base of your skull. The longer you look, the less the figure at the gate is a man, and the more he is a shape the night makes, when it wants you to know it is paying attention. Your mind reaches for the ordinary, what your wife will say when you tell her there was a fare to the French house, the way she will ask how much, and then put the money in the jar with the quiet competence you first fell in love with. The fans click every 21 seconds because one blade is bent. The cup she sets upside down so the night doesn't drink with you. Small stubborn details, sir? You call because men like to put words in the air to own it. Your fare. He lifts a hand in the smallest gesture you have ever seen and manages to make it gratitude. Fine, you tell yourself. 2 minutes. Then you will turn the key and leave the river to its river business. You tap the meter again to have something to do. The wind shifts upstream and brings a smell that is almost sweet if you lie to yourself. Mud, wet wood, smoke that has had 40 years to decide who it belongs to. The mansion holds its weather and shares only what it wants. You blink, he is gone. The space where he stood is now only air. Your lights paint the iron, and the iron refuses to be anything other than iron. The chain does not move. The padlock does not blink. There is no sound a man makes when he changes his mind. There is nothing to measure the moment against except your own pulse and the pressure in your throat. You lean forward over the wheel as if an inch will help. Through the bars, the weeds are undisturbed. The drive is the same stingy strip of ground. No shadow loosening itself from the trees. No polite knock. No door to knock on. The mansion sits back, the way big things sit when they want to be mistaken for hills. Left, the lane ends at a wall with initials cut by hands that have become other work. Right, the lane kisses the river and ends in steps slick with algae no one wants to scrub. The ferry's chain lies heavy. No other car, no moped, no man running. You look down at the rear seat because looking back there has saved your life twice. And a habit like that will insist on its usefulness, even at a gate. The fabric lies flat. On the seam where a passenger's heel would tap, droplets cling that your dashlight turns into silver. You touch one. Cold climbs your finger as if it knows your name. Your heart hurries and then pretends it didn't. You open the door. Because you cannot tell this story to yourself.
Later, if you do not at least touch the thing that frightens you.
Outside, the air is thicker, standing close to your skin like it has advice. You stand a step from the gate because fathers leave you instructions whether they meant to or not. Hello, you say, and sound like a man who hopes he is in the wrong place. Nothing answers. The cicadas try again, then quit at the same second like children who have practiced. The river slaps the stones once and keeps its mouth. Up close, the chain's links are not as big as you always thought from the road. They are ordinary, which makes the entire business worse. Someone tied red thread around one link years ago, the kind your aunt loops around a child's wrist to fool a fever. And the thread is still red. You should be able to blame sun and moss and time and neglect. You put your hand flat to the iron. It is not cold. It is not warm. It is exactly the same temperature as your palm, as if the gate has been courteous long enough and would like to go back to its own business now. Under your hand, a tremor, no, not a tremor, a thrum, like a string plucked somewhere beyond your reach, shivers through the metal. You step back because stepping back belongs to you. Your heel kisses a crack and your shoe makes a small dry sound that wants to be a laugh. The sound seems too eager, like a bad friend. Get in the car, you tell your legs, and for once, they listen. The door thunks shut, and you breathe like it will earn you something. The meter shows the rupee 0. You frown and press the button again. It blinks, obedient, and then blinks out. Your thumb remembers pressing it before. The red digits do not remember you. The ignition catches on the first try. The engine is loud enough to make the night take a step back. You reverse slowly, the way you do when a child might be crouched behind your bumper. You refuse yourself one last look through the bars. If there was a man and he wanted you to see him, he would have stayed. You tell yourself this, and the telling sits in your mouth like a coin you cannot swallow. At the mouth of the lane, something pale skims your side window, reflected light with no source, a sheet of brightness that slides over your shoulder and is gone. You reach for the radio like a man reaching for a handrail. The static chooses a woman's voice for 4 words, and then lets her go. You take the road by the temple because thresholds comfort you, and the temple door has watched more nights than you will. The altar's little bulbs throw a weak halo, and for a breath you consider stopping, but prayers you don't mean have a way of circling back. You keep going. At a red light that shouldn't exist after midnight, you smell the river inside the car. It has brought with it a sweetness like dead flowers and a sour you cannot name. You breathe through your mouth and count. 1, 2, 3. Your father taught you to count thunder and wait for its apology. The air does not apologize when you pull into your alley. Everything is where you left it. The neighbor's dog, a humpless shadow under a chair. Your laundry, still wet, flagging down the night. The small pot you forgot on the step with a basil you keep failing. The porch bulb is feeble but tries. Your gate squeals the way it does when you don't oil it, which is always. You close the car and stop with your hand still on the handle. On the rear mat, where a passenger's heels would have made their home, were he a man, 2 footprints, heel to toe, facing the door.
Not muddy.
Not dusty. Wet. The rubber holds the shape as if it likes the attention. They do not drip. They do not blur into each other as sensible water should. They sit in the light like fish in a shallow bucket, alive and only pretending. You lock the gate with the wrong key first and then the right one because your hands have learned how to be less useful at the end of a long day. Inside, the kitchen still smells faintly of fried shallots and the mint tea your wife swears will keep the night clean. The fan clicks in the bedroom, the 21-second tick of a bent blade. Her shape under the sheet is a hill you would walk forever if the road allowed. You wash your face for longer than necessary. The water from the tap is warm and honest. You put your palm on the mirror and leave a print because men like to prove they are still here when a room refuses to say their name back. You
turn out the kitchen light and the house breathes you.
And you do not check the gate. You have already decided you checked enough. Somewhere between the first and second hour that belongs to fishermen, your eyes open to a sound like a knuckle tapping once on iron, far, near. The same sound twice, 3 times, separated by a count that feels like it should mean something. You hold your breath and listen for the river, and the river listens back. The rooster from the next alley wakes you before your alarm does. Its voice cuts through the early grey, dragging your body up from a sleep that never felt like sleep. You sit at the kitchen table with tea cooling between your hands. Your wife hums as she folds laundry, her hair pinned back, the small, ordinary rhythm of morning trying to reassert itself. The air is heavy with fried garlic and soap, but your stomach is still thinking about the footprints, about how water that should have dried into nothing chose instead to keep its shape until you looked away. You don't tell her, not yet. The envelope, when you step outside to unlock the gate, you freeze, tucked between the iron bars, exactly at eye level, is a plain envelope. No stamp.
No address.
No attempt to pretend it was delivered like other letters. It is wedged there, waiting, edges damp from the dawn air. The paper is yellowed, the way cheap pages turn after decades. It's the color of teeth of a calendar no one flipped since the war ended. You glance left and right down the lane.
A boy pedals by on a rusted bicycle, ignoring you.
A woman carrying baskets of morning herbs adjusts the pole across her shoulders. Ordinary. Everything looks ordinary, but the letter is not ordinary. You pull it free. The paper rasps against the iron. Your wife calls from inside. Breakfast is getting cold. You slip the envelope into your pocket without answering. Inside the house, at the table, she notices your distraction. What is it? She asks, pushing a bowl of soup toward you. Nothing. Just thinking about last night's fare, you mutter, eyes on the steam. Her lips press tight, but she doesn't push. She has learned the shape of your silences. When she goes back to the laundry, you unfold the envelope under the table. Your knees make a secret desk. Inside is a single photograph. Your family. Taken through the window at dinner last week. You can see yourself with chopsticks halfway to your mouth, your wife mid-laugh at something on the television. The angle is wrong, tilted, as though the lens was pressed flat to the glass. Your hand goes cold around the edges. Behind the photo, a note. The note. The handwriting is uneven, almost carved into the page. Ink pressed so hard it bleeds faintly through. The lane remembers everything. So should you. Your first thought is some stupid prank, but the second thought is quicker. The footprints, the man at the gate, the voice that said everyone goes that way. Eventually, the spoon trembles in your hand. You set it down before she notices. Fear of scandal. You tell yourself it must be about family. Some old wound, some buried trouble that survived long enough to rise now. You think about your uncle's debts, about whispers you once overheard, land disputes, a cousin's shameful marriage, things swept under mats. Vietnamese families do not forget. They store anger like they store rice, sealed in jars, waiting. But this feels older, dirtier. Your wife comes back with folded clothes, sets them on the chair.
Eat, she says softly.
But her eyes catch yours, and for a moment you think she knows. Knows what? You can't even tell yourself. The lane later, you walk down the lane with the letter folded tight in your fist. The neighbors nod, offer greetings. The air smells of fish sauce, burning charcoal, rain still caught in broken bricks. Kids kick a ball against a wall painted with mildew, and the sound echoes hollow, like a heartbeat heard through a wall. But as you reach the corner, you notice something. Your gate is still visible behind you.
And on it, where you pulled the envelope out, there's a faint smudge, a thumbprint.
Damp, darker than the rest of the iron. As if whoever left the envelope didn't bother hiding the trace of their hand. As if they wanted you to see it. The tea in your stomach turns bitter. You walk faster, but the lane feels longer, and the shadows feel closer. Chapter 3, the first letter. The envelope will not leave you alone. You keep it folded inside your jacket pocket, as if that might slow the beating of the words written inside. But every step you take feels like you're carrying heat. The kind that doesn't burn skin, only the inside of your skull. At the gate, again by late afternoon, you find yourself walking home slower than usual. The lane is quiet, shadows already long though the sun has not fully set. Vendors pack away their trays of sticky rice and fried dough, and the smell of fish sauce hangs thick. Your eyes lock on your gate before you even reach it. You half expect another envelope to be waiting. But there is none. Instead, something worse, the faintest shimmer on the iron, as if moisture has clung only there, as if the gate has breathed while you were gone. You stand for too long in the middle of the alley, key in hand, until a neighbor clears his throat while passing. You force yourself to unlock it, forcing casual movements. Inside, you lock the door quickly, heart beating louder than the bolt sliding home. The letter's date. You sit at the kitchen table. The envelope lies between your palms. Your wife is humming again, preparing vegetables for dinner. The rhythm of her knife on the board should be comforting, but every cut sounds like a clock counting something down. This time, you unfold the paper fully, smoothing it on the table. At the top of the page, in faded ink, is a date, 1978. You stare at it. That year feels heavy, though you cannot immediately say why. You were only a child then, but the country remembers that year differently. So many things half buried, half whispered. You read the words again, slower this time. If you are reading this, forgive me.
I'm trapped on the far side of the river. The photograph? Your hands shake as you lift the photograph again. Your family caught mid-meal.
But now you notice something you missed before. In the dark reflection on the window glass, there is another shape.
A man, tall, standing behind the photographer.
His face pale, his outline blurred. You drop the photo as if it burned you. Your wife looks up from the kitchen, startled. What happened?
Nothing, you say quickly.
Too quickly. You bend to pick it up, sliding it back into the envelope. Just spilled some tea, but your fingers are dry. A night conversation. That night, after dinner, your wife sits by the window, combing her hair. You sit across the room, pretending to fix the radio, but your eyes keep going to her reflection in the glass. Finally, you say, "Do you remember 1978? She frowns at you in the reflection. Why would you ask that? You shrug, trying to sound careless. Just, do you remember hearing anything strange back then? About the river? She sets the comb down. My mother said no one crossed after dark. Not in those days. I said the river took people. Men came back sick, talking nonsense. Some never came back at all. She pauses, voice lowering. Why are you asking me this? You want to tell her everything.
The stranger.
The footprints. The letter. But the words knot themselves in your throat. Instead, you say, I just had a dream. That's all. Her eyes linger on you a moment too long. Then she blows out the lamp. Alone in the dark in bed, the envelope lies under your pillow, as if keeping it close might control it. But the words press harder against your mind now than they did in your pocket. 78. Trapped on the far side of the river. You close your eyes. For a moment, you swear you hear water moving just outside your window, though the river is blocks away, and beneath it, the faint rattle of a bicycle chain, moving, stopping, waiting. Dawn comes like a hand pressed over your mouth, gentle, firm, and not asking permission. You surface in pieces. The weight of the blanket across your legs, the click of the ceiling fan every 21 seconds, the faint medicinal smell of camphor from the drawer where your wife keeps balms and bandages. Your eyes are still closed when her fingers clamp your forearm. It is not the sleepy tap she gives you on mornings when she wants you to make tea. It is a grip with intent in it, nails finding skin through the sheet. You open your eyes to grey light and the shape of her face too near, too pale. Her hair is unbound and damp at the temples, sweat pearls on her upper lip, the way it does when fever begins. She's breathing through her nose like someone trying not to cry. I saw him, she whispers, and the whisper is not a softness but a broken thing. You push up on one elbow. Your mouth is dry. Who? Her eyes cut to the window. The curtain is pulled tight, gauzy fabric gone dark in the dawn. The alley beyond is still in the night's pocket. The man, she says, the one you talked about. From your last fare, you hadn't said much last night. Not about the footprints, not about the letter. Only that a passenger made you uneasy. You offered no face to that unease, yet she has found one. What did you see? The question feels like picking up a knife by the blade to hand it to someone else. She swallows. Her hand retracts from your arm to your wrist and stays there, as if counting your pulse will keep time from moving.
He was outside the window, she says.
Here. She points, index finger, tremoring toward the bottom pane near the latch, the exact spot where, last night, you noticed an oval of condensation from breath on the outside. He stood and looked in as if he had been doing it for a long time. He didn't blink. You try to keep your voice level.
Outside?
Not in the room? She closes her eyes as if that might steady the memory.
Outside, she says.
But that
wasn't the worst. Her face changes, goes rigid around the mouth.
His feet didn't touch the ground. A minute passes between you, full of small sounds. The tick of the fan, a bowl settling in the kitchen, someone clearing their throat in the alley. Your own heart. You could say it was only a dream. You could say she is picking up your nerves and translating them into pictures she can understand. You could say anything and be wrong. You throw the blanket aside and cross the room. When you pull the curtain, the metal rings rasp on the rod, loud enough to make you both wince. The alley is ordinary in the way things are at the edge of morning. Not quite awake, not quite forgiving. Chickens scratch at a damp patch of ground under your neighbour's chair. A boy pedals by with yesterday's shirt turned inside out.
Laundry lines are taut, shirts swelling like lungs.
The sky is white and promiseless. No man, no shadow. No mark on the neighbour's wall. And yet, there it is. A faint oval fogging the bottom corner of the glass, as if a mouth had pressed to it in the night.
Outside, not in.
The rest of the pane is clear. The oval is precise, not the smear of humidity, and even as you watch, it lingers instead of fading the way breath should. You lay your palm flat to the inside of the glass. Cold comes through as if the alley had placed its hand against yours. You let the curtain fall. Dream, you say. And the word sounds like something you took from another room and brought here because this one had nothing to give. She sits back on her heels on the mattress. The sheet has twisted around her waist. She is still breathing too fast.
I never remember dreams, she says.
But I remember this. You climb back onto the bed and take her hand from your wrist to your palm. The lines on her fingers are paler than usual, blood pulled back toward the center. You need warmth into them. Your own palm is colder than you expect. She watches your face and decides out loud for you. You don't believe me. I believe you woke me up, you say, trying for a smile, failing.
And you're shaking. I believe that. She lets you have the evasion because she has something else to put between you. There was more, she says.
She turns her head toward the ceiling, as if the shape of the blades might coax the words.
In the dream I could hear the river. Here. She taps her chest bone with 2 fingers.
Not outside, inside, like it was running through me. He stood there. She flicks her eyes to the curtain again, fast, as if the cloth could bark. And I knew he had come from the water, not the bank. The water. You could tell her about the wet footprints on the mat, about the droplet that clung like it liked attention, about the date 1978 printed across a page that still smelled of damp. You tell her none of it. The words sit behind your teeth and choose not to enter the world. I'm going to boil water, you say. Drink something hot. She nods and begins to gather her hair with a rubber tie, fingers slowed by tremor. You kiss the top of her head. Her scalp smells faintly of jasmine and sleep. When you stand, her hand catches at your shirt. Lock the back door, she says, gently, but with the weight of a ritual. You do, sliding the bolt with a clack you always think must wake the neighbor's baby. You put the kettle on and stand foolishly in front of the flame as if heat could argue with memory. When the water begins to mutter in the pot, you find 2 cups and tell yourself that the simple shape of them is a kind of truth. You add tea and sugar the way she likes in the morning, when the night has stayed too long. Strong, sweet, mean enough to scrape out a throat. When you return to the bedroom, she has pulled the curtain back 2 inches and is peering through like a child spying a parade.
Anything, you ask? Only people, she says.
Which is worse, maybe. You pass her the cup and sit on the edge of the bed with your own. Steam rises and softens the air in front of your face. Your first swallow scalds the back of your tongue. The pain is ordinary and welcome.
I didn't tell you the worst, she says after a moment. No? Your cup freezes halfway to your mouth.
He lifted his hand, she says.
With 2 fingers.
Like this. She raises her own hand, index and middle finger extended, pointing down. Not a sign you recognize as everyday. It felt like he was calling someone. Or counting. You've seen the gesture once, on the far side of another night. In the lane toward the mansion. You thought then it was a summons, not for you, but of you. Your mouth is suddenly too small for breath.
I think we should take down the curtains, she says abruptly, eyes still on the fabric as if it had become a face.
Just for a day or 2? Why? You already know why, but you want her to hear herself say it. So I don't have to wonder what's behind them, she says. So I don't have to give him a place to stand. You set your cup aside and pull the curtain down from its rod. The rings pop free one by one, small metallic hiccups. The window gapes open to the light. The glass is marked only by the oval of condensation near the latch. As you both watch, a rivulet forms at the bottom of the oval and drips to the sill. You cannot say whether it dripped from outside to in or the other way.
Let's eat, you say too loud.
You're pale. She lets you herd her to the kitchen. Breakfast is simple, leftover rice reheated, egg fried into a lace, slices of cucumber with salt. She eats as if the food is trying to escape her fork. You make yourself go through the motions the way a man follows a prayer. Bite, chew, swallow, breathe. Will you drive today? She asks. You don't want to. The idea of the river road sets something moving in your gut that is not hunger. Maybe the short shift. you say. Stay inland. Good, she says, and if there is relief in her voice, she hides it by standing to rinse her bowl. I'll go to the market. We need fish. I promised my mother. You nod, and then you are both doing the small choreography of mourning that has kept you married. She folds cloths, and you fix the radio that will never be fixed. She lists what must be bought, and you list what must be forgotten. You look up the number for the man who could come and straighten the ceiling fan blade, and do not call it. When she leaves with a basket on her arm and her hair pinned tight, she stands for a second too long in the doorway.
Lock behind me, she says. I always do. I know, she hesitates.
If he comes again, he won't. The lie leaves your mouth with the shape of promise. Promises keep people alive. He won't. She nods, as if it were true, because that is also a way to keep people alive. Then she is down the steps, across the patch of light, into the lane that turns and eats you whole if you stand still. You watch until the curve takes her. The house is louder when it's empty. The clock in the main room ticks like a nail-tapping porcelain. The kettle sighs as if remembering another boil. You stand with your hand on the window latch, forced to admit you do not know whether to open or close. The envelope sits on the shelf where you put it last night, among jars of rice and flour, between salt and sugar, as if it were another ingredient in your life. The paper has softened where you handled it. The date 1978 looks less like a mark and more like a bruise. You pull out the photograph, not because you mean to, but because your fingers have been waiting all morning to betray you. The angle from the window catches your wife mid-laugh, your own mouth open like you were about to say something you forgot before it arrived. Behind the photographer, that pale shape in the glass reflection, a tall shoulder, a blur pretending to understand faces. You slide the photo back in hard enough to bend the corner and then immediately apologize to it under your breath like a madman. You tuck the envelope deep behind the rice jar, as if privacy could smother it. Rice mutters when you move the jar, the dry rasp of grains against glass like someone whispering too fast to understand. You check the back door again. The bolt is still across. You check the front gate. The lock sits in its place, thumbprints smudge from the envelope still faintly visible. You wipe it with your sleeve. The mark becomes darker, not lighter, spreading as if awakened. The morning wears on you like a coat that doesn't fit. By 10, the alley is a thin soup of sun and damp. The woman 2 houses down sings to her baby as she beats a rug. The old man at the corner tea stall argues with a radio announcer no one else can hear. You cannot sit still. You cannot drive. You cannot give yourself the permission to do nothing. Men who do nothing invent enemies. You take the long road to the temple because thresholds are where you learn whether something is following you. The temple sits under a Bodhi tree that shed hearts into the courtyard at this hour. The caretaker, a woman with hair the color of ash and a face cut from patience, sweeps dried leaves from one side of the step to the other and back again. She nods when she sees you and nods again at your shoes until you remove them. The floor is cool stone under your soles and the relief is almost obscene. You light incense and press your palms together and do not know whose name to offer your future to. You whisper your father's just to relieve the pressure that name has put on your tongue since last night. The smoke goes into your hair and will not leave it. You place 3 sticks in the sand bowl until they stand like men in the rain. You close your eyes and say nothing that would embarrass you to hear out loud. On your way out, the caretaker says, it is easier to make a river promise than a man. She doesn't look at you when she says it, which makes it worse. What do people promise rivers? You ask, because your mouth cannot help itself. Not to look back, she says, and keeps sweeping. In the market, the smell of fish slaps you across the nose and reminds you your body is real. You buy too much of everything because abundance feels like a shield. You nod to the same woman who always tells you her herbs are fresher than her sisters, and you are grateful for how aggressively ordinary she is. A child tugs on your sleeve and asks for a coin. You give him 2 because you don't want him to touch your shirt again. Home! You set the bags on the counter and wash your hands until the skin squeaks under your fingers. The window without a curtain shows you the lane in unwanted honesty. Your gate stands where you left it. On the floor mat inside the car, because of course you look, 2 wet footprints remain.
Not smudged by heat.
Not stolen by morning. They have chosen to keep their shape. You take a sponge and a bowl of hot water to the car. The smell of detergent is cheap and chemical, an hour-old rainbows on puddles smell. You brace your palm on the seat and lean in. The sponge makes first contact with the left footprint. The water warms it. The footprint does not yield. You scrub harder. The rubber squeals. The print thins and then blooms again as if pulled back up through the mat. It should make you angry. Instead, your shoulders sag as if you have been forgiven something you didn't mean to do. You stop scrubbing. You sit very still with the sponge leaking between your fingers until the water cools. A voice makes you jump. You wash late, the old woman from across the lane says. She is carrying greens in a basket and curiosity in her mouth. Spilled tea, you lie. She peers past you into the car. No stain, she pronounces. Not anymore, you say too quickly. She looks at you the way a woman looks at a stray dog deciding whether it will bite or starve. A man left a letter, you add, because shame wants company.
On your gate?
She nods before you can answer. They do that when they want to be remembered, or when they want to remind you that you should remember them. She sniffs once, sharp.
Don't leave rice on the table tonight.
Rats come walking on their hind legs when you do that. What does that mean? It means don't leave rice on the table, she says, and moves on, the basket settling into the curve of her shoulder like a story that has learned its ending. At noon, your wife comes home with fish wrapped in old newspaper and a face that is trying to be later than it is. The vendor swears the sardines are from this morning, she says, laying the parcel on the counter. Ink has printed itself onto her fingers. She watches your face as if expecting you to erase something from it. No more visitors? She asks.
Only the old woman, you say?
With recipes. She smiles that small sideways smile she keeps for you when the world is not cooperating. Eat then, she says. I'll fry. Oil makes the kitchen do what kitchens are meant to do, disappear everything else. The sizzle and spit of sardines, garlic browning too fast, the quick slap of your hands on a lemon to find the juice. You move around each other like you have always moved around each other, the way 2 people do when they have learned each other's shadows. The smell could wake the dead if the dead needed a reason. And yet, she is quieter than usual. Every few minutes her eyes flick up to the window. Twice she starts to speak and stops. During the second plate, she lets her fork hover and asks, "Do you remember when you were little and your uncle took you across the river to the festival?" "Which festival?" you ask. "There were so many then before the city made the calendar smaller." "The lanterns," she says. "They floated them on banana leaves with candles. Your uncle told you not to look back at the bank until your wish had left your body." You nod. You had forgotten it until she said it, and now you can feel that night in your bones. The small fear that the candle would burn the leaf and the river would come up for you.
I cheated, you say?
I looked back. What did you wish? You consider lying. For my father to stop drinking, you say. She nods, satisfied by your honesty, and squeezes your hand across the table. "Do not look back right now either," she says. "Let this pass." You want to tell her the river is not something that passes. You want to tell her that sometimes it goes still, and in the stillness everything else moves. You take her advice instead like someone takes medicine he doesn't believe in because he wants to keep faith with the person who made it. She naps after lunch, worn down by a morning she refuses to name. You sit with the envelope for the space of 5 breaths and put it down each time as if it had become hot. The room is too quiet for a city. You turn the radio dial slowly, a fisherman hauling in line. Static gives you a fragment of a weather report. The forecaster says the river will be safe this evening, then corrects herself to say traffic, not river. You turn the dial the other way and find a song your mother used to hum when she hung laundry. The melody so sweet you can't tell whether you like it. You turn the radio off. At 4, the sky decides to be evening.
It is too early.
Your wife wakes with a small sound that could be a sob and could be a yawn, and you choose to hear the second. She sits up and rubs her face hard with both hands, like she is trying to erase a stamp.
Did you rest?
You ask. I dreamed again, she says. She looks toward the window and then away. A different part, or the same part from another angle. Tell me. He knocked, she says, and the word lands between you like a pebble that fell through 3 floors. Not with his knuckles, with his forehead. Your stomach does a thing you would not describe. How many times? 3, she says, slow, and I could hear it from very far away. You stand up because sitting is suddenly above your station.
I'll drive the short shift, you say. Keep busy.
The old road, not the river. It feels like a decision, though it is only a postponement. She nods and does not ask you to stay, because she knows men cannot always do what women ask when they are frightened. She comes to the door with you and button fastens your shirt where your hands are clumsy. She presses her palm to your chest and keeps it there, long enough to make your heart behave. Don't take calls from the far side, she says, and the sentence is only nonsense if you have not been living your life. I won't, you say, and this promise is a more honest lie than this morning's. Outside, the alley has chosen its evening noises, bowls stacked, moped starting, a woman laughing too loud to prove the laugh is hers. You unlock the car and hesitate because now there is ritual attached to sitting behind that wheel. You open the rear door first. The mat is dry, or no, not dry, only less wet than it was, like a shirt that has been wrung out and forgiven. The footprint shapes are there as shadows in the rubber rather than water. You run your finger across one. It's not a stain, but your knuckle wants it to be. You get behind the wheel and start the engine. The radio chooses a station for you, a man speaking about missing persons in another district, his voice careful as if he does not want to wake them. You turn it off and let the engine be your companion. You reverse into the lane and meet the eyes of the old woman with the basket. She taps her temple with one finger and then points at your tires. You do not look at your tires. You put the car in gear and go. You keep your promise. You take the old road that avoids the embankment, past the laundry where steam holds hands with the ceiling, past the schoolyard where boys kick a ball that has lost its paint, past the mechanic who can fix anything except the way his father talks to him. You pick up fares who smell of hair oil and boredom and smoke. They talk about wages and football and the price of rice. You let their words sit in your car like good fruit. When you are between passengers, stopped at a light that does not need to exist after dark, you hear it, not the river. That would make sense. The light knock of metal on metal, 3 times, slow. It comes from your left where the window is up and the lane is empty. You look and see only the reflection of your own mouth half open in the side glass. At 9, you turn the car toward home without realizing you meant to. Your hands decide before you do. The long road drags itself alongside the river anyway because that is what long roads do. You do not look over.
You do not.
You feel the water moving in your ribs and breathe anyway. Your wife is at the table when you step in, hair wet from a shower, a bowl of cut fruit between her elbows because there must be color somewhere. Better? You ask, crossing the floor like a man who hopes relief is contagious. She nods and does not convince either of you. He came again, she says simply. When? While you were gone, she says. I heard the knock from far away. I opened the curtain. She looks at you, daring you to scold her.
You do not.
He didn't move. He didn't speak. He only watched.
I didn't speak either. I thought if I spoke, he would find the shape of my mouth in the words and come in through there. What did you do?
You ask, whispering, because that is what you do when a man might be sleeping in the next room. I held up 3 fingers, she says, surprising you, to say I am not afraid and to say I know how to count him. She looks at her hand now, opens and closes it, embarrassed by her own courage. Then I close the curtain. You put your hands on her shoulders and turn her gently toward you. You press your forehead to hers. She is too warm. Sleep in the front room, you say. It will feel different. I don't want different, she says. I want the same, but with less of him. You build the bed in the front room anyway, the thin mat you keep for cousins, the extra blanket that smells faintly of the cedar chest. She lies down without argument. You sit beside her on the floor until her breath deepens and evens. You go to the window because someone must be stupid enough to look. The glass shows you yourself. For once you are grateful for that small vanity. On the shelf beyond your reach, the envelope glows softly in the lamplight. It is only paper. It is a door. You could take it now and burn it and wait to see if the smoke curls into letters. You could slide it under your mattress and tell yourself things under beds cannot climb onto them. You do neither. You turn down the lamp. You place a bowl of salt on the sill because men have always been putting lines on the floor and believing they matter. You lock the front gate and the back door and then check both again. You lay your hand on the window latch a final time. The metal remembers your temperature and returns it to you. In the hour when even fishermen turn on their sides, you wake to a weight on your chest, not crushing, only insistent, like a cat, settling but colder. You tell your body to move.
It does not.
You tell your mouth to shout. It forms the shape of your wife's name and keeps it. The ceiling fan clicks. On the glass, the oval appears again, not fog now, but something like frost. It blooms at the bottom corner like a flower from another country. 3 knocks. Slow. Not on the gate.
Not on the door. Not on the glass.
In your ribs from inside, echoed by everything in the room that remembers water. Your breath returns all at once like a debt recalled. You sit up with a sound you would prefer not to have made. Your wife stirs and says your name like a question. "I'm here," you say, and this time it is true, which does not help. You get to your feet because standing is the only thing in reach. You cross to the window and lay your palm to the glass. Cold meets you willingly. You lean your forehead against it until the ache in your sinuses chases away the echo of the knocks. Outside the alley is a darker dark. The curve of the lane contains whatever it contains and refuses to present it.
No man. No feet not touching ground. Behind you, your wife's voice, very small. "He's going to keep coming. I know," you say.
Because the only thing worse than lying now would be making her the only one telling the truth. You do not sleep again. You sit in the chair by the window and watch grey become lighter grey. You think about names that are not kept beyond the gate and debts that are. You count your own life, the nights, the fairs, the small kindnesses that should weigh something, and find you cannot make the numbers speak your language. When light finally proves itself, you rise stiff and go to the sink to scrub your face awake. In the streaked mirror above the basin, for one breath-long flicker, a taller shape stands behind your reflection, very straight, very patient. Your own mouth opens. The shape's does not. You close your eyes and open them again. Only you. You return to the window. The oval of condensation is gone. In its place, on the outside sill, 3 grains of rice sit in a neat row, swollen as if they have been in water a long time, laid there by a hand you did not hear. You believe, without evidence, that they are for you. You pocket them because you cannot help yourself. Because men have been carrying tokens into danger since danger learned to stand upright. Because wanting proof is its own appetite. The day begins whether you want it or not. Somewhere, a vendor shouts the price of herbs. Somewhere, a motorbike coughs itself awake. Somewhere, under trees that have decided the house is theirs, an iron gate considers the shape of your hand. And somewhere inside you, a decision you will call courage later has already been made. The evening presses down on Hanoi like a damp cloth wrung out over the rooftops. You keep the rice grains in your pocket all day, their swollen weight against your thigh, reminding you of the windowsill, of the hand you never heard. You don't tell your wife. She has carried enough already, but when dusk comes and the alleys stretch themselves into longer shadows, you know where you must go. You have delayed long enough. Every story seems to end at the same place. The riverside mansion, its iron gate watching like an old tooth that won't rot or fall. the walk to the gate. The car feels like a trap now, a coffin with wheels. You choose your feet. The walk is slow, the city folding in and out of itself with every corner. Stalls close, tarps flapping against wood. The air smells of fried shallots, engine smoke, incense from someone's forgotten altar. You carry no lantern, no flashlight, just the pocket weight of those 3 swollen grains, the envelope hidden in your jacket, and your name, which feels suddenly thinner than it used to. By the time the river comes into sight, your shirt is stuck to your back. The mansion crouches against the bank the way a man crouches when he is tired but doesn't want to show it. The roofline tilts, tiles missing like teeth, but the bones of the house refuse to bow. The iron gate still holds. Its chain is loose, but the lock hangs stubborn. You press your hand to it and feel. Not rust, not cold, but a faint vibration, as if the metal itself is humming a tune you cannot hear. For a moment, you consider turning back. You think of your wife in the front room, salt bowl on the sill, curtains gone. You think of the forehead knocks from inside your ribs. You think of the man with no feet in her dream, and then you push. The gate swings open with a groan that belongs to no hinge. The yard, inside, the air changes. The road sounds vanish as if swallowed by the weeds. The grass here grows longer, sharper, as if fed on something richer than rain. The smell of the river is stronger, but not of water, more of metal, iron, coins in blood. You step carefully, every crack of twig a betrayal. Your shoes sink slightly, though the ground looks dry.
Once you glance back,
the gate is smaller now, further away than it should be. The mansion looms. Its walls are scarred, shutters askew, windows like sockets that once held eyes. A faint yellow glow seeps from one window on the second floor. It is too weak to be electric.
Too steady to be candle, you stop.
That is when you hear it, the sound of pages turning. Not fast, not frantic. Slow, deliberate.
As if someone is waiting for you to catch up. You move closer. The front door is massive, wood swollen with years.
It should resist you, but when you touch the handle, it sighs inward, just enough for you to slip through. Inside, the air is colder. Dust hangs thick, but not untouched. Footprints crisscross the floor. Some small, some large, some bare. Some pointed downward, but never pressed with weight, as if the walkers skimmed rather than stepped. The smell is the same as the letter. Old paper. Mildew and something human that should not be here anymore. Your eyes adjust slowly. The foyer is cavernous, stairway sweeping up to shadow. A chandelier droops, glass teeth broken. On the wall, family portraits in gilt frames. The faces are blurred, water damaged, but every pair of eyes is intact. They follow. You whisper your wife's name without meaning to. The house swallows it. The ledger on a table by the stairs lies a book.
Not modern.
Thick, leather cracked, edges swollen with damp. You recognize it before you open it. It is the ledger you saw in your dream, or was it hers? Blood stains your memory of it. You lift it, heavy, warmer than it should be. The pages smell of salt. Names scrawl down the columns in ink, faded to brown. Each name has a number beside it. At the end of each entry, a date. Most are before 1978, some are after. One page sticks to your finger. You pry it open. There it is, your family name. Not yours, not your wife's, but your father's. Next to it, the year 1978. The date on the letter, your pulse stumbles. You close the book too hard. The sound echoes up the stairwell. From above, floorboards creak. The stairs you do not want to climb, but you do. Each step sighs under your weight. Halfway up, you see the yellow light again, spilling from a half-open door. The sound of pages grows louder. A chair scrapes against wood. At the landing, you pause. You tell yourself to breathe. You tell yourself your father was just a man with debts, with mistakes, with nights he did not come home. But the ledger insists he was also something else. You push the door. The room smells of damp cloth and old smoke. Furniture huddles in corners, draped in white sheets that look like bodies waiting their turn. A desk sits under the glowing lamp, which is not a lamp at all, but a jar filled with something that flickers faintly, like trapped fireflies or embers that refuse to die. Behind the desk, a chair. In the chair, the tall man, the same one. The last passenger, he does not look at you. His head is bent, visor helmet reflecting the faint light. His hands move slowly, turning the pages of the ledger as though reading a story he already knows. You grip the doorframe.
Who are you? He stops.
His head lifts, not fast, but like something that takes energy from the air itself. The visor catches your reflection warped. You see yourself small, distorted, trembling. When he speaks, his voice is not from the helmet. It is from the river. I am the debt your family left unpaid, the bargain you want to run. Your legs refuse. The air thickens until your breath comes in gulps. What debt? You manage. The man lifts a hand, 2 fingers pointing down. The same gesture your wife dreamed. Every crossing, he says, requires payment. In 1978, your father crossed and did not pay. The river keeps its own account. He pushes the ledger toward you. The page with your father's name is open, your family line running downward. At the bottom, blank space waits like an open grave. Your name belongs there. You shake your head.
I never crossed. He tilts his head.
The visor shows you a ripple of water, not your face. You were born owing. The silence stretches until it has weight. Then he says, almost kindly, the lane remembers. So should you. The return, you don't remember leaving the mansion. One blink you are staring at the ledger, the next you are stumbling through the yard, weeds clawing at your legs. The gate groans open of its own will. The city's noises rush back in, too loud, too fast. When you reach home, your wife is at the window. She knows before you speak. You went inside, she says. Her voice is flat, as if naming a curse. You want to tell her you saw nothing, that the mansion is only wood and stone, but you cannot. Your hand is still smudged with the ledger's ink. What did he want? She asks. You sit heavily. The chair complains. You close your eyes. He wanted me. The rice grains in your pocket are gone.
Only wetness remains.
Night will not wear the face you ask it to. You sit at the table with your wife's hand cupped around your wrist like a small boat around a stone. The house smells of fish bones and lemon and the leftover heat of cooking. In your pocket there is only dampness where 3 swollen grains of rice should be.
A single dark smear rides the heel of your palm, not ink, not mud. Ledger blood, the pages old damp insisting on you. What did he want?
Your wife asks again. Me, you say, and your voice arranges the word as carefully as a cup set on a stranger's table. He says my father crossed without paying. She flinches. Not at father, at paying. As if something in that word knows how to walk around the room and find her ankles. We don't owe rivers, she says quickly, like prayer, then softer. We don't. You want to agree to be a man who waves his hand and sends ideas back to the corner. Instead, you look at your knuckles. Water shimmers there that you did not wash on.
It does not slide. It clings the way something living does. I need air, you say. And before she can answer, you are on your feet.
The chair scraping an apology across tile. Don't take the river road, she says to your back, but the gate has already opened, and the lane has already decided where you will go. The long walk down the alley makes its night noises in careful order, cutlery stacked, a baby's cough, a scooter that refuses to start and then does. You walk as you always walk, shoulders tucked, head angled, so the streetlights choose you. Your steps count themselves without your help. The old woman with the basket watches from her stoop. She does not call out. She crosses her arms, then uncrosses, the movement small as a decision. The city thins toward the embankment until the smell chooses water over oil. The air cools with a deliberateness you resent. You hear, before you see, a rolling that is not traffic. The word river rises inside your chest like a name you were supposed to answer to when you were young and didn't. At the last bend, the rail comes into view, the metal painted the color of surrender. Beyond it, the water. But not water as it was at noon, sliding and minding its own business. The surface now heaves and knots as if a net were being dragged from beneath, as if 1,000 invisible hands had decided to wring it. There is no wind. Trees do not move. Flags hang dead. Smoke from a food cart draws a straight line and stops. Only the river is alive all at once. You stop without telling your legs to. Your breath goes thin and wide. There should be boats, even this late. Fishermen setting lines, a solitary light, distant as an idea. But the water shows no boats. Instead, little crowns of white appear, disperse, appear again, like something laughing without sounds. The bank steps, the old stone ones few people use anymore, shine black as tongue. On the third step down, water has left a necklace of silt, fine and pale, beading each edge. It looks careful. You put your hand to the rail and it comes away wet.
No spray touched it.
The rails are dry above and dry below. Your palm glistens as if someone has licked it. Then your name, not said aloud.
Not by a mouth.
But there, threaded into the roll, braided under the churning, a syllable shaped by pressure and return. No, it is not the whole of you, but it is enough. You lean forward like a fool. Your reflection does not come to meet you. Instead, a different face forms, stretched long by the water's movement, pale eyes where you expected black. You blink and it is gone, or it never was. A bicycle bell rings behind you. You start, too human, and whirl.
No bicycle.
Only a flash, the visor's curve, bright and not bright, as if a headlight found itself and then changed its mind. The lane behind you is empty to the corner. You turn back. The river has moved closer without moving. The sound it makes chooses a human rhythm, the baseline of blood in the ear. It is not enough to call it a heartbeat. It is too intelligent.
A beat that waits for your breath and corrects it. We don't owe rivers, you say again, louder.
The sentence goes no farther than your lips. The water rolls and you hear laughter, but yours, not yours, coming back from an older day. Memory arrives not as a picture but a bruise. Lanterns on banana leaves drifting out, small suns refusing to sink too quickly. Your uncle's hand heavy on the back of your neck. Don't look back, he said, stern for once. You did. In the brief turn, the leaf flipped, the candle hissed. Smoke made a line on the water like writing you couldn't read. Your uncle's hand tightened, not cruel, only final. Now you cough, as if smoke has waited in your throat all these years to come out and be noticed. You can keep your book. You tell the water. You can keep your numbers. You do not raise your voice. The river prefers men who think they are whispering to it alone. The water responds.
Not with words.
With a shape. A sleek length slides under the surface, too smooth for driftwood, too long for a fish you recognize. It passes parallel to the bank, then angles toward the steps, toward you. Your body believes in edges and chooses one. You step backward until the metal rail makes itself your spine. 3 knocks, slow, hollow, arrive across the water. You spin to find the source.
Iron? Wood?
Glass? You remember your wife's dream of a forehead against the pane and want to laugh, but choose not to. The knocks repeat, nearer and deeper, inside bone. They do not speed to frighten you. They measure you. Your heart tries to match and fails, and then, shamefully, learns the tempo. Something in your chest nods, yes, this one. You grasp at ritual because it is the only weapon you own. You reach into your pocket for the 3 swollen rice grains. All fingers clasp only wetness. A small thing breaks behind your sternum. The feeling of a button popping from a shirt in a public place. Fine, you say to nobody. Fine. You fish in your other pocket and come up with the salt packet you kept by mistake from a street cart. It is clumped and sticky, cheap paper sweating. You tear it with your teeth and pour a mean white line along the top step. The salt doesn't scatter like salt should. It melts as it falls and leaves a pale seam, as if the stone is thirsty and has asked for this. When the next surge comes, the water rises to the second step. It should also rise to the third.
It does not.
It stops dead at the salt and slides away like a dog ashamed of what it was about to do. You breathe out, too fast. You pour the rest, shaky with relief, along the entire edge. Where the packet empties, the river swells suddenly and slaps the step and still does not cross. You see? You say into the dark, to the man who is not here and is. We don't owe, the river roars. There is no other word. Not the roar of ocean, not wind through a canyon, not crowd, not engine.
A massed throat without bodies.
Every sound the city could make, given back at once, hawkers and horns and prayers, and fathers and radios and plates, and children and dogs and grief, looped and layered and pressed into a single long vowel that unzips the air. Your ribs vibrate with it like lines on a drawn bow. Lights in flats along the embankment blink and blink again as if someone inside them is trembling. You drop the empty paper and it darkens, vanishes, sucked to the edge and under. The river takes everything you feed it, even the things you mean as fence. Then come the voices, not singing, nothing that generous.
Names, you think?
Not just yours. They are listed as if someone stands knee-deep in the current and reads from a book whose pages never tear. Old names first, then newer ones, small ones, and ones with too many consonants, ones that never got used, ones that got used and then put away. When your father's arrives, the sound of it doesn't come from outside.
It rises from you like a bubble that has been trying for years to find a place to pop. You make yourself swallow it. Enough, you say, and the word looks tiny, ridiculous, in the air beside that water.
You feel it leave you fragile and hope it finds land.
Enough, the river laughs. No, not laughs, that would mean joy.
It accepts your answer the way a clerk accepts a wrong form, puts it on the stack, and moves on. The surface smooths abruptly, as if a hand laid flat across it. From calm water, lights begin to appear. Not onshore, not above. In, they burn yellow, steady, spaced like a path. At first you think boats, paper lanterns, festival men returning with last year's wishes. Then one of the lights bends and stays bent, while the others keep their height and pace. A human bend, a shoulder lowering in a tired step. The lights arrange a line from the far bank toward you, toward the old steps, toward your inefficient little wall of salt. Don't look back, your uncle says again. From some place with little boys and banana leaves, you do not look back. You are too busy looking straight at what is coming. Shapes form around the lights, not reflections. Bodies, but wrong, lacking the grammar of joints, moving as if the rules of knees were advisory. Above each light, a face.
Not decomposed horror, the river doesn't grandstand.
Intact, clean, pale with the long patience of wet things.
Eyes that no longer choose lids.
Mouths closed but speaking. You do not hear them. You know their speech in the same place you feel thunder. Make room. We are owed. Your knees align themselves in the direction of running. Your stubbornness, which has gotten you both married and into trouble, keeps your feet. You plant your hands on the rail and make your breath a job. We don't owe, you say, for the third time. And even the river seems to admit the courage in saying anything 3 times. The first shape reaches the salt line. It stops. The light under it brightens like anger and like hope. The face lifts, and in it you think you see a cousin from a wedding. No, from the photograph at dinner. No, from the reflection in a visor. It is all faces folded into one. The light burns whiter. The salt hisses as if the stone had begun to cook. You glance right, left, for witnesses. The embankment that was a minute ago full of people thinking about soup has emptied.
Only a boy stands 3 lampposts away holding a kite with no wind, string trailing to his feet.
He watches you watching the river and does not move. Then he raises his free hand, 2 fingers pointing down, slowly, like a man counting, like a man calling someone home. Your mouth dries to paper. You think of your wife alone under her cheap blanket, listening for knocks from inside herself. You could leave. You could turn and make the city taller between you and the water. The shapes would come anyway, would simply choose the lane where walls make echo and the salt line makes nothing. You reached down, fool, and touched the salt seam with the tips of 2 fingers.
Heat lives in it now. Your skin tightens.
A blister will be there in the morning, and will be nothing compared to what might. A thought arrives.
Rude and uninvited pay. As if you've finally understood a word you've been avoiding because it was written in a script that embarrassed you. Pay with what?
You ask the water, not sure whether you are bargaining or begging. The river roars again, but softer, like laughter left in another room. The shapes lift their chins as if smelling. Your father used to do that when he came home later than promised. Tilt his nose at the kitchen like the kitchen might forgive him. Not coin, you say.
Not blood. How do you know? You do. Memory, a pause.
The lights hold. The first shape leans forward, expectant, not hungry. A teacher, waiting for the right word. The lane behind you tightens. Boots on brick, soft and mathematical. A motorbike engine, no sound, only the scissor of its chain turning without power. You don't turn. Maybe you have finally learned something from your uncle. You keep your eyes on the water and reach into your pocket for what else you have to lay down. Your fingers find the envelope. Of course, the letter gives up its weight into your hand, paper gone cramped from hiding behind rice. You take it out and with your back to whatever waits in the lane, you hold it over the river. The date 1978 looks different tonight, clearer, less faded. The ink is new where it should be old. Your eyes refuse the trick and accept it. Forgive me, you read aloud. Your voice falls cleanly into the noise, a pebble finding not the surface but the bed. I am trapped on the far side of the river, the shapes still. Then together they bend, not toward you, toward the letter. A dip of heads as if at an altar. Your throat threatens to close. Around a thank you haven't earned. You turn the envelope over. In the lamp's weak shorelight, a second line shows, one you swear wasn't there before, the ink wet enough to gleam. Paid in words, it says, in a hand not yours. The salt line steams. The first shape shivers and fades an inch, not retreat, not advance, a movement like consideration. Behind you, something like a knee bumps the rail. A presence leans into your back, visor inches from the nape of your neck. You know without knowing the smell that the helmet is dry. Memory, you say again, reckless now that you have survived a second. Take mine. The river obeys, not the whole of you. It is not greedy. It takes pieces. The exact sound your mother made when she laughed and could not stop. The name of the boy who lent you a cricket bat under the school stairs. The pattern of cracks in your childhood ceiling that made a map of some place you thought you would visit. Each is taken gently, not torn. Each departure leaves a cool place inside you where heat should be. You sway. Your hands do not let go of the rail. Enough, you say, when the cool begins to feel like forgetfulness and not mercy. Leave me my wife. The fact that you can say wife means you still know her. Gratitude is a smell like rain on a tin roof the shapes hold. The first one straightens an inch as if tasting and being satisfied. A flicker passes down the line toward the far bank, like a scent. The water's surface relaxes. The crowns of white flatten. The path of lights blurs and becomes simply reflection. The roar subsides into a role you could call ordinary in a country that has learned to lie to itself about rivers. Behind you, the chain tightens, releases one link through another link, the language of machines that have learned to be patient. The visor's reflection shifts in the corner of your vision, then disappears as if blinking took it. The boy with the windless kite is no longer there. A dog barks twice, informs the night that nothing has happened. You stay where you are because you do not trust your knees to carry you home without mischief. The salt line is a pale scar on the step.
It looks stupid and it looks beautiful.
A moth staggers into your ear, changes its mind, and leaves. Your shoulders remember they belong to a body and drop. When you finally turn, careful with your head.
As if it might spill, you expect the lane to be empty.
The world to have scrolled back to the part where it pretends it wasn't watching. It has. The only sign anything stood behind you is the smell. Not water, not oil. A metallic sweetness like coin rubbed warm in a palm. It clings to the inside of your nose and will not stop being there. You walk home a different way, not because you are clever, but because your feet are mildly superstitious. You go past the temple. The caretaker is asleep in a chair, mouth open, broom propped between her knees like a third leg. You put a coin in the box because your pockets insist on lighter. The coin rings too loud. The caretaker does not move except her eyelids, which lift a fraction. "Don't feed them from your heart," she says, eyes on some second place behind you. They learn to eat there. At your gate, you pause. The iron's paint, in this light, decides to be the color of bruise. You open. The hinge squeals, relieved to have a job. Inside, the house has arranged itself to look exactly as you left it in case you needed proof of continuation. The bowl of salt on the sill, the cups drying upside down, the radio dial set between stations because you could not stand anyone else's voice. Your wife sits in the front room, blanket to her waist, eyes clear in the half-dark. "What did you give it?" she asks, as if there was never a question of if. "Pieces, you say, not yours." She nods, and in the nod are hours you will never describe. She beckons you, pats the mat. You sit and lay your head in her lap because you have built a life sturdy enough to allow this motion. She strokes your hair in a rhythm that has always calmed you and does not fully now because the knock is still somewhere inside your ribs, less loud, not gone. "Did it stop?" she asks after a time. "For now, you say."
It made a path and then unmade it. Her fingers pause.
"A path from where?" "From the far side," you say. Saying it makes the room colder by a degree. She breathes in, long, steady, and then speaks a sentence she has saved for this precise moment. "There is something you don't know about 1978. You lift your head. She is not looking at you. She is looking toward the kitchen shelf where you hid the envelope, where the jar of rice sits like a witness. "My mother kept a story like old clothes," she says. "We should have burned it. We didn't. Tomorrow we will go to her." You nod, but it is the kind of nod men give when they have plans that end before morning. "Tomorrow," you say, and even the house humors you by leaning heavily towards sleep. You wash your hands at the sink.
Under your nails, silt, fine grey, smelling of coins and lilies.
You scrape it free and it streaks the porcelain like something that knows how to leave marks. You bend your palm to your mouth and taste the tip of your cleaned finger because humans are strange. The taste is salt and metal and a sweetness like overripe fruit. You drink water to kill it. It lingers, less a taste than a decision. In the mirror above the basin, your face looks as it always looks after a long night, except where it doesn't. Behind your left eye, a hollow where a memory used to sit. You cannot name which. You feel for the outline, the way a tongue finds a missing tooth and worries it, and promise yourself you will stop. You do not sleep. Your wife does, twining and untwining the blanket with her toes, smiling twice at something that is not you. The knocks stay with you but turn into the house's noises. Wood settling, a neighbour's chair, a fox in the alley, stepping onto a tin sheet and reconsidering. The river's voice has receded to a line under the others. It is not gone. It has learned your name, and you have learned it knows it. Near dawn, when the world is as fragile as a plate between hands, a single wet footprint blooms on your kitchen tile. Not walked, placed heel to toe.
Facing the door.
The shape is narrower than yours, longer than your wife's. You look up without meaning to, as if someone stood before you. No one does. You kneel. The water is cool, not cold. Under your fingertips, something small and hard moves, caught in the print's curve. A fish scale.
It clings to you.
Silver when you tilt it, black when you don't. You hold it up to the window. It does not behave like anything from the market. You think about setting it in the salt bowl, about leaving it on the sill, like a missive about the river's excellent memory. Instead, you slip it into your wallet behind your driver's license because you are not ready to decide who you are without it. The sky opens its pale mouth. The city yawns and remembers it is a city. Roosters fail in every direction. Somewhere, a ferry chain lifts and falls. The day chews and swallows the night, but a taste remains. You lie back beside your wife and feel the knock once, soft, as if from the far room.
You count 1, 2, 3 to see if a fourth comes. It does not.
You close your eyes and it is not sleep, but it is something that looks like it from a distance. In the morning, you will tell yourself you can go to her mother and get a story big enough to outsize a river. In the morning, you will think you can be a man who puts a ledger back on a shelf and says, "Not today." In the morning, you will decide to avoid the embankment and then find yourself at its rail. But now the house breathes with you, and somewhere beyond your street, beyond the curve of lanes that have learned your habits, beyond the step where salt drew a temporary line, men with faces like reflection wait on the far bank, patient as water. And a rider with a visor like a closed eye rolls his chain twice and once again, measuring a distance he has already crossed. The hollow. Morning comes, but it does not bring relief. It slides in weakly like a grey film across the sky, unable to wash away the weight of the night. The air in the kitchen tastes of damp smoke and leftover rice, and every ordinary sound, the sparrows fighting in the gutters, the cough of a neighbour unlocking his motorbike, reaches you muffled, as though the whole city has cotton stuffed in its ears. You sit at the table,
hands wrapped around a cup of tea you cannot drink.
In your pocket lies the thing you cannot forget, a single fish scale, pale and slick, that gleams silver one moment and black the next.
You should have thrown it into the river.
You should have burned it in a clay pot, ground it to ash, buried it beneath salt. Instead, it stays close to your thigh, warming against you like a coin no one should spend. Your wife bustles around you, chopping morning vegetables, folding laundry, humming a lullaby her mother taught her. Her voice wavers only slightly, but you notice it. She sees you staring into nothing and pretends not to. You see her pretending and you do not stop her. The memory you gave away has left a hollow. You keep probing it like a missing tooth, but all you find is absence. You know something is gone, perhaps a face, perhaps a name, but you cannot say what. And that ignorance burns worse than the memory ever could. The decision by noon, you cannot bear it. The tea has cooled, the flies are circling the peel of garlic left on the cutting board.
And the silence in your chest has grown unbearable. I'm going to see your mother, you say, suddenly. Your wife freezes, knife mid-air.
She turns her head just enough for you to see the flicker in her eyes.
Why? I need answers, you say.
The words are flat, lifeless. You could tell her about the scale, the ledger, the rider, waiting like a debt collector at your window. You could, but you don't. She sets the knife down carefully, aligning it with the board. She won't thank you for stirring old dust. I don't need thanks, you answer. Neither of you says more. She wipes her hands on her apron, eyes lowered. You take your jacket, and the scale presses into your thigh as if approving your decision. The old house, your mother-in-law's house, leans into its own shadow, 3 districts away. The yellow paint has cracked into rivers across its surface, and vines strangle the fence post. The garden is overgrown with banana trees whose leaves hang like exhausted arms. Inside, the air is heavy with camphor, mothballs, and wilted jasmine. Every step across the warped wooden floor makes the house complain. She waits for you in her chair by the window. Her spine is bent, but her eyes, oh her eyes, are sharp as polished glass. They pin you the way an insect is pinned to a board. "You went to the steps," she says, without greeting. You swallow, unable to lie. You nod. Her lips tighten, the skin around them brittle as old parchment. The river doesn't forgive, but sometimes she leans forward, her breath smelling faintly of betel nut.
It bargains.
You've started the bargaining, haven't you? You try to answer, but the words collapse in your throat. She does not wait. From beneath her chair, she drags out a wooden box, its hinges coughing as it opens. Inside lie relics, old photographs blurred with mildew, folded letters browned with age, a child's sandal stiff with rot. She chooses a photograph and pushes it toward you with one trembling hand. The image shows men in uniforms, water at their ankles, faces blurred, bodies half dissolved by time. But in the corner, unmistakable, your father. Young, unsmiling, eyes hollow even then. 1978, she says. Her voice is both whisper and blade. There was a crossing.
Not of men, of things. Your blood chills. She does not use the word spirits.
She does not need to. He carried something across the river. He failed. Some say he turned back. Others say the river took its share. Either way, he walked away alive. The river remembers. It always remembers. Her hand trembles as she closes the box.
And debts don't vanish. They wait.
They wait until blood ripens in the next generation. Her eyes bore into you. It doesn't want him anymore. It wants you. The empty lane you leave as dusk begins to sink its teeth into the alleys. Hanoi at night is never silent, but tonight the city feels as if it has been draped in a funeral shroud. The hiss of frying oil, the chatter of vendors, even the shrieks of children playing shuttlecock all sound dulled, as though the air itself doesn't want to disturb what follows you home. Your steps echo too loudly on the cracked pavement. Your shadow seems too long, as if stretched by invisible fingers. When you reach your gate, your stomach twists. The door is ajar. Your wife never leaves it that way. You push it open. The living room greets you with its false calm. Furniture in place, altar candle stub still smoking. But the air is wrong, thicker, sweeter, laced with the metallic scent of coins left too long in water. On the table waits another envelope, not yellowed, not crumbling, new, cream-colored. Your name is written in block letters. You peel it open with hands that do not feel like yours. Inside a single sheet, the river remembers. It has taken one piece. Soon it will take more. If you wish to keep your wife, walk back to the steps tomorrow at midnight. Your hand trembles. The page flutters like a moth in the still air. The watcher, then you see it. Outside the window, parked just beyond the halo of the street lamp, a motorbike.
Engine idling.
Headlight off, the rider sits motionless. A reflective visor catches the dim light, a mirror of nothing. You lunge for the door, heart battering your ribs. But the lane is empty. Only the faint click-click of a chain turning, then silence. You stand in the open gate, breathing smoke into the night. Behind you, your house waits. Inside, your wife moves in the kitchen, humming again, oblivious. The letter still flutters on the table. The motorbike's echo lingers in the air like a promise. The night that follows, you do not sleep. Every creak of the roof beams, every shuffle of rats in the rafters, every whisper of wind against shutters sounds like the river pressing itself into your house. At some black hour, you drift into half-sleep. You dream, or you believe you dream, that your wife is standing at the foot of the bed. Her hair drips onto the tiles, puddles forming where her feet should be. Her lips move, but no sound comes. Then she lifts her hand. In her palm lies the fish scale, the same one you kept in your wallet. You jolt awake, breath ripping your throat raw. Your wallet lies open on the floor. Empty. The fish scale is gone, and from somewhere far, far off but too close you hear it, the steady roar of the river miles away, whispering through your walls the waiting. The day crawls like a wounded animal. You rise, you walk, you eat, but each motion is a puppet string tugged by dread. Your wife watches you in silence, her eyes carrying questions she no longer asks. She sets bowls of rice before you, folds your shirts, touches your arm, as though you might dissolve if she holds too tightly. You cannot tell her what waits at midnight. You cannot tell her the truth of the envelope, the fish scale, or the way the river's roar has seeped into the walls of your house. You can only sit at the table, staring at nothing, while the sky deepens from grey to bruised purple. By late evening, you have convinced yourself not to go. You think if I ignore it, maybe it will dissolve. If I stay with her, if I hold her hand until morning, maybe the debt will pass us by, but debts do not dissolve. They grow teeth. At 11:30, the letter on the table trembles as though a breeze has touched it, though no window is open. The air in the room tightens, metallic and damp. Your wife shifts in her sleep, murmurs your name, and you know then that you cannot stay. If you stay, she will be taken in your place. The streets of Hanoi lie hollowed. Lanterns sway without wind. Dogs bark once, then silence themselves. You keep your jacket tight around you. In one pocket, a rusted lighter. In the other, nothing.
Even the wallet has been left behind.
What use is money to the river? As you near the water, you hear it before you see it. The murmur of current is wrong, not flowing, but speaking. Low syllables slur into one another, words you cannot recognize but feel lodged in your chest. The path to the steps is overgrown, weeds taller than your knees. They part too easily, as though they've been waiting for you, bending to usher you down. When the river comes into view, you stop breathing. The steps gleam wet, though no rain has fallen. Each stone glistens under the weak moon as if freshly licked. The current below is black glass, unbroken, though you hear it crashing in your skull, and waiting at the bottom, visor catching the moonlight, is the rider. The visor rider! He stands beside the bike, motionless. The machine itself looks older than it should, polished chrome dulled to grey, tires sinking slightly into mud. The helmet reflects the river, not you. You came, his voice drips out, neither muffled nor clear, but carried on the tide. You stop halfway down the steps.
Your throat burns with unsaid words. What do you want?
He tilts his head, slow, deliberate. Not me, the river.
I am only the messenger. Then let it take me, you say. Leave my wife, he laughs, short, sharp, cruel.
The river does not bargain that way. It takes what is owed.
One life for another.
One silence for one scream. He lifts his gloved hand and gestures downward.
At first you see nothing.
Then you realize the surface of the water is moving differently, bulging in the shape of a doorway. The procession from the river rise figures. One by one, they step onto the stones, dripping black water that vanishes before it touches the ground. Men, women, children, faces blurred, eyes sharp. They walk in silence, forming a line behind the rider. Among them, you recognize one face, your father. He does not look at you, but you know it is him. His features are hollowed, eaten away by water, but the line of his jaw, the slope of his shoulders, it is him. The sight punches the air from your chest. You owe what he did not pay, the rider says.
And now the choice. The choice. The rider pulls something from his jacket, the ledger.
Its leather is darker, slicker, as though kept under water all these years. He opens it to a blank page, places it on the stone step between you. Sign your name, he says, and the river will take you now tonight. The debt ends, your eyes burn, your hand trembles, and if I don't? The visor tilts. Then the river will choose, perhaps your wife, perhaps her mother.
Perhaps a child not yet born.
The river collects, sooner or later. You close your eyes. Your wife's face swims behind your lids, pale in candlelight, lips moving in dreams you cannot hear, her hair dripping on the tiles, the empty fish scale. You kneel. The ledger reeks of rot and iron. The blank page breathes beneath your hand. You cannot bring yourself to sign. The interruption before. Your pen can touch paper, though you do not remember bringing a pen. The air shudders. A lantern flares at the top of the steps.
A woman's voice slices the night. Don't you turn.
There, in the wavering yellow light, stands your wife. Barefoot, hair loose, eyes blazing. She must have followed you, though you never heard her approach. The rider stiffens. The line of waterborne figures shifts.
Restless. She doesn't belong here, you cry, but she steps down anyway past you until she stands between you and the ledger. I won't let it take you, she whispers.
If it must take someone, let it be me, the bargain turns. The rider laughs again, a low gurgle like bubbles rising through mud. The river enjoys devotion. Very well. If she offers herself, the debt is doubled. You both will cross? No, you shout, lurching forward. The words echo, strangled by the river's roar. Your wife takes your hand. Her grip is cold but steady. If it ends with us, let it. The figures from the water lean closer, faces sharpening, eyes gleaming with hunger. The ledger glows faintly, page waiting. You realize then, the river doesn't want signatures.
It wants surrender. The refusal for the first time since this began. You find steel in your spine. No, you say, louder than the current.
You will not have her. The visor turns toward you, tilts.
Then sign.
Sign and it will be clean. You shake your head.
No, my father's debt is not mine. If you want him. You jab your finger toward the water-soaked man who was once your father. Take him.
He's already yours.
Leave the living alone. The rider is silent.
The figures stir uneasily. The water ripples. Your wife grips your hand tighter.
Don't let go, she whispers, and then for the first time the visor lifts. The face beneath, there is no face.
Only a hollow filled with river water.
It sloshes, black and endless.
Inside it you see fragments. Your father's eyes, your own mouth, your wife's silhouette. Reflections, waiting to be claimed. The voice emerges not from the hollow, but from everywhere at once. The river keeps. The river waits. The river will return. The ledger snaps shut with a crack. The line of dripping figures collapses like mist. The rider steps backward into the black water, bike and all, vanishing without a splash. The river's roar fades into silence. The aftermath, you collapse against the steps, shaking. Your wife kneels beside you, her breath ragged. The stones are dry now, as if nothing happened. But the ledger is gone. Only one thing remains on the stone. A fish scale, gleaming faint silver in the moonlight. You leave it there. Hand in hand, you and your wife climb the steps back into the night. But you know, as surely as the river flows, that the debt is not gone. It is only delayed. Morning with edges, dawn arrives like a blade with the flat turned toward you. Bright, but not meant to cut. You and your wife walk home from the steps without speaking, each of you holding the silence like a bowl you're afraid to spill. The city is not quite awake. A few early vendors drag their carts, broomstrokes shush alleys clean, and a radio miles away murmurs a weather report that might as well be prayer. Inside your gate, the house looks exactly as you left it, as if it had been standing very still so you wouldn't notice it moving. On the sill, the bowl of salt has crusted into a pale ring. The table holds last night's chopsticks like abandoned oars. Your wife sets the kettle on. The flame takes 2 tries, then agrees. You sit. You mean to say it's over. Your mouth finds a different sentence. It isn't finished. She nods before the words land. No, you both listen for the river and hear only water in the pipes. It feels like being lied to by something too big to confront. Your mother, you say. Today? Her eyes shift toward the door, as if your suggestion might bring the day through it faster. Eat first, she says, and tears the bread in half. It crumbles more than usual, like a stale fact that won't go down. You eat anyway, because bodies insist. When the tea is gone and the cups sit with brown rings like eclipses, you both stand at once. In the doorway, she touches your chest the way doctors once touched people to prove they were human. If it comes, she says, not needing to define it.
Don't answer. I won't, you say.
And only the table knows how much you want to be a man who can keep that promise. The story in the yellow house. Her mother's house crouches in its own shade, as if embarrassed by all it remembers. Leaves comb the roof with slow green fingers. Inside, the air has the taste of camphor and secrets. She is already in her chair, as if the night had told her to wait there. The box is on the low table, lid askew, contents stiff with years. She looks at your wife first, measuring not fear, but readiness, then at you. The way a teacher looks before asking the question you should already know the answer to. It let you go, she says, not surprised. For now, you don't sit. You don't deserve the ease.
Tell me what my father did. She lifts the photograph again, but does not hand it over.
Her thumb rubs the corner the way people rub worry beads. In 1978, she begins, the river carried more than boats. It carried men and their losses. It carried orders. She glances at your wife, a small apology in that look. Your father was conscripted to help a group move a thing they believed would make them powerful.
Not gold, not guns, names, you blink.
Names?
A ledger, she says.
Old as the French and older. Records of favors owed, lives promised, the kind of book that lets one man pull another man's breath by tugging a thread in a different city. They wanted it hidden on the far bank until the right people could come for it. She pauses. Your father ferried them at night with one lantern covered and the breaths of everyone on board held like coins. You picture it. The small boat's ribs showing through paint, moonlight deciding not to help, the river making its own weather under the hull. What happened? The river rose, she says, not with rain, with appetite. The boat took water in mouthfuls. He told them to throw weight. They threw sacks, one tall. Pages slapped the surface like fish.
Names sank, and the river tasted them. Her voice softens.
They made it to the far bank with half a ledger and a whole fear. On the way back, a woman tried to stand. She said a name that wasn't hers, and the river decided to keep her. Her father grabbed her wrist. He felt the moment of choosing. He let go. You sit without remembering how the chair reached you. Why? Her mother's mouth tightens. To live. Something in your chest that has been building a case against your father drops its folder.
It does not forgive him.
It understands that Night made a bargain with his hands that his life could not afford. They paid him, she continues, a coin, a promise, a prayer said wrong. He hid the coin in his boot and the prayer in his throat, and for years he drank water that tasted like names. When he died, he was light, not because he had given enough away, because the river had been taking him by teaspoons. Your wife kneels by her mother's chair, head against the old woman's knee. How do we end it? The old woman opens the box. Under the photographs and the sandal lies a bundle wrapped in cloth. She unwraps it the way people unwrap religious things. Inside is a thin book warped by damp. A ledger, but not the ledger. Newer binding, old pages.
I copied what I could, she says.
From men who spoke in fevers, from a fisherman who found a page snagged in his net, from a name that kept appearing in deaths that weren't accidents. This is not their book, but it is enough to make a mouth. You peer at the ink, the cramped letters, names, dates, places where water remembers too clearly. You kept this? Where else could it go? She asks, weary and hard.
Into the ground where the river eats?
Into flame where smoke teaches the clouds to say them?
I kept them because the dead have no pockets. You touch the pages and the skin at your forearms prickles as if the letters can see you.
What do we do? Not salt,
Not rice, she says.
Those are gates, not answers. Pay with the only currency the river respects since it learned hunger, the truth said out loud.
Name them where people can hear. Give them back their mouths. Not to the altar, to the air. The idea is terrible and clean.
You see at once how it could work and how it could undo you. Speaking these names means pulling a rope tied to men who live, who punish, who remember in their own ways. It means scandal, and in your country, scandal is a second river.
Tonight, your wife says, as if choosing a time is the same as choosing courage.
The old woman nods as if she expected nothing else.
At the steps, she says.
Where the ledger tasted the water first. Bring a bell. Bring oil for lamps.
Bring your voice. And the rider?
You ask, unable to keep the tremor out of Ryder. She makes a face like someone tasting a fruit that used to be sweet. He will come if he thinks you brought silence. Come with noise. The city that doesn't want to help you, try to borrow a temple bell. The caretaker narrows her eyes and says, "The bell is for the living." You say, "So are the dead." She stares long enough for you to wish you had spoken less. Then she points to the small handbell at the back, the one brides borrow when they marry cheap and still want spectacle. You leave a coin. It rings too loudly in the donation box, and you wonder if the river hears coins the way dogs hear whistles. The caretaker watches you go with an expression that might be pity and might be something older. Oil comes from the hardware stall, brown glass bottles lined like soldiers. Lanterns you buy from a man who insists they're for weddings. You do not correct him. Let the lie be a rope you can grab later if you slip. On the way home, you pass the embankment you swore to avoid. The rail is the same stupid green. The steps shine because they prefer to. Between two posts, someone has tied 3 red strings that mean nothing and everything. You take them down. You will need a line to hang a mouth on. At home, your wife makes a packet of joss paper, not to burn, but to crumple, metallic squares that catch the light and annoy spirits who want attention without interruption. She writes, "Please" on the back of your left hand in blue pen, and doesn't explain.
You kiss the word.
She lets you. Your mother-in-law arrives as the light thins, small and stubborn, a basket on her arm. "If I die at home," she says, as if someone had argued. She doesn't look at the river until she has to. The walk that becomes a procession. The 3 of you go together because there is no other way that feels like a way. You carry lanterns and the thin ledger. Your wife carries oil and matches. The old woman carries the bell. The lane, which usually eats you in one swallow, steps aside for once. Neighbors notice the lamps and the old woman's set jaw and say nothing, which is a form of blessing. At the last turn, you hear the river trying out voices it might use on you tonight. It tests a father's cough, a child's questions, the click of a visor chain. It is a generous mimic. The steps wait, cleaned by something you didn't hire. Moonlight hangs itself on the rail like laundry. You line 3 lanterns on the top step and light them one by one. Their small flames make the kind of light that tries hard and doesn't apologize for being small. Your wife loops the red strings between the posts, tying them with quick fingers. She knots the 3rd so tight you think it might snap, and then it doesn't, and you let yourself believe that means something. The old woman rings the bell once. The sound is thin and bright, and it runs a little distance across the water, and then it stands up straight like a soldier being inspected. And the river looks at you, not with eyes, with a pause. "The reading you open the ledger." Your hands want to shake. They decide not to, out of respect for the dead. The first name is at the top of the first page, ink that bled and then dried. Tran Thi Lan, 1978. You speak it, not with ceremony, with the exact muscles you use to say tea and keys and come home. The lanterns do a small thing, no more than a leaf might do when a fish passes under. The water does a smaller thing, like breath drawn in before a word. You ring the bell because the old woman told you to between every 3 names, to keep time from pooling in the wrong places. It scolds the air and you like it. You read, "Names that feel like stones in a pocket.
Names that feel like birds." Names you've heard at weddings and in bars and in the mouths of beggars and in no mouth ever, because the mouth was taken first.
Your wife repeats them under her breath a half-second behind you, the braid of your voices making a rope you can hold. The old woman says each date like an indictment. The river reacts not like a beast, but like a ledger. With every name, the surface smooths a little. With every bell, a small bubble pops without sound. On the third page, a thin mist rises not toward you, but toward the red strings and hangs there like a curtain deciding whether to fall. On the seventh page, your throat dries to paper. The name there is the woman from your mother-in-law's story, the one who stood in the boat and spoke a name that wasn't hers. You say hers now, slowly, so the river cannot pretend you didn't. For a second, a shape lifts in the mist, shoulder, jaw, hair plastered to a skull by the kind of water that never dries, and then it collapses into air. Your wife squeezes your elbow at the elbow's soft place. Your eyes find the lantern glass to avoid finding hers. You turn a page. The ink is new where it should be old. Your father's surname sits beside a first name you did not know belonged to him. You say it. The sound leaves your mouth and does not return. Something releases in your chest, not forgiveness, not even understanding, just the knot that kept water from becoming the thing you drink when you are too tired to chew. Behind you, a motorbike chain clicks one link, two, then stops as if told to wait its turn. You read until the names run out and the bell's voice is smaller than it was, because bells give pieces of themselves to the air when you make them work. At the bottom of the last page, there is a space for a name, and you find you are not afraid of blank spaces tonight. You close the ledger, and the pages make the sound of birds leaving a branch. The river considers the knock that isn't wood. It comes not from the gate, not from the window, not from the door you lock twice and check 3 times. It comes from the steps, the third from the bottom, the one you salted. 3 taps, slow, hollow, like something patient reminding you it is not a dog you can teach new tricks. Your wife's hand finds your back. The old woman tilts the bell to make sure it knows whose side it's on. A shadow collects at the water's edge.
Not man-shaped, ledger-shaped. It rises without rippling anything and places itself on the second step.
No leather, no binding.
A geometry of obligation standing where you can see it.
Behind it, something gleams. The fish scale, or 10, or 1,000. It's hard to tell when light has decided to try on faces. They arrange themselves like coins across a palm that pretends to be water. Say what you want, the old woman murmurs, because she has been waiting years to say those words. Your desire is a messy crowd. You keep only one in front. Leave our house, you say, to the steps, to the water, to whatever borrowed lungs the night is using. Take what is yours that we returned. Take the names.
Leave the living. The ledger shape does not nod because it does not pretend to be a head.
It only leans a fraction the way a clerk leans when a form is finally filled correctly. Then the water moves, not forward, not up, down. You feel it in your knees, in your teeth, in the soft places behind your ears. A lowering, a settling, a bed being made for a guest who has decided to stay in the room it owns instead of wandering the hallway. The mist folds. The red strings tremble and stop. The lanterns burn without flicker, small and doing their best, which is all any light can promise. And from behind you, where lanes live and gossip is born, the chain clicks again once and does not continue. You do not turn. You have learned one thing from an uncle and a lifetime. Sometimes not looking is the magic you can afford. What debt does, when it's tired, you. Walk home carrying fewer things than you brought. 2 lanterns snuffed and still warm. A bell that has given you its voice and wants oil. A ledger that weighs less than it did. Your wife walks beside you, shoulder against shoulder, a contact so small it could be mistake, and therefore indestructible. The old woman keeps a step behind, not out of deference, but because she is watching the dark for holes. At your gate, nobody waits. The smell in the alley is the ordinary mix: fried garlic, soap, distant smoke, without the metallic sweetness that had been living in your nose. You let yourself pretend that means something. Inside, your house inhales the three of you and decides to keep you. On the sill, the bowl of salt has collapsed into a shape that looks like a map of the river if drawn by a child. You smooth it with your finger and don't feel superstitious about it. The radio, which you forgot to unplug, mutters and then chooses a song your mother used to hum, and for once you do not turn it off. You set the ledger on the table. The old woman sets her palm on its cover. "Put it where the living can find it," she says, "not where the river can." You think of the temple, of the caretaker's narrow eyes, of men who read and decide which parts of the world count. You think of the market, of the tea stall, of the corner where rumors crawl out to sun themselves. You think of a child with a kite and no wind, not a shelf, you say. A mouth, your wife smiles into her cup.
"Tell it," she says, "and means more than tonight." The bell rings once by accident when you move it.
The sound is small and happy to be here. The three of you laugh because sometimes laughter is what a room needs to make a shape it can live in. Your mother-in-law dozes in her chair, fingers still hooked around the basket handle, jaw set even in sleep. You cover her with the spare blanket, and the blanket decides to stay. The knock returns. It is late again by the time you let your head find a pillow. Your wife breathes slow and even beside you, and you match it out of respect. The fan clicks its 21 seconds. A dog flips on the alley stone. The city hums like something that has just decided not to die. You do not dream about the river. You dream about tying your shoe, and it takes both hands and an apology, and you wake up relieved not to have to apologize to a shoe. And then the knock. 3. Measured. Inside the ribs. The place where last week you thought fear lived, and tonight memory does. You sit up the way a man sits up when reminded he owes a little money he can actually pay. The house is dark, except for one square of city light on the wall from a neighbor who forgot her curtain. You stand. You do not take a lantern. You go to the window and lay your palm to the glass. Cold meets you, but not farther than the first layer of skin. Outside the alley is a muted blue bowl. No rider, no idle chain. The iron of the gate is only iron, uninterested in your hand. You press your forehead gently to the glass because you are a creature that likes rituals once they've stopped pretending to be magic. Your breath fogs the pain in an oval. You watch it fade.
It does, like a civilized thing. Behind you, your wife says your name the way people say stay.
You turn. She is half up on her elbow, hair a shadow, eyes clear. "Is it there?" she asks. You think about the steps, the ledger, the names you gave back their mouths. You think about the truth moving through the city like a smell, slow, unstoppable, attaching itself to people's tongues until they have to spit it out in the tea shop, at the mechanics, in the queue for permits, at the doorway of the man who made a life out of forgetting other people. "It knocked," you say, just to say it knows I'm here. She lies back. "We know it's there," she answers, which is not surrender and not bravado. "We'll keep the bell." You climb back into bed and your body notices the sheet as if sheets were new. Sleep does not arrive. It agrees to wait in the next room.
That is okay.
You lie in the dark and feel the house around you doing the work of being real. Somewhere near dawn, rain begins in the careful way it begins in this city, first on one roof, then on another.
Then on the river, like fingers tapping a table to make sure the table remembers music.
You listen to it and think, the river is busy with itself. It is a comfort beneath the kind that can be proved. What comes after the last knock? The next day, you take the ledger to the temple. The caretaker looks at you for a long time, then at the book, and then at the space where your shadow falls. "We don't keep ledgers," she says. "No," you agree. "You keep bells." She rubs her jaw with the back of her wrist. We keep stories that make people behave. A pause. Leave it with the incense. People with guilty fingers like to touch things there. When you set it down, a boy with a windless kite appears at the door, as if he had always been there, and you had just learned how to see him. He stares at the book, then at you. He raises his hand and, instead of the 2 fingers pointing down, he holds up an open palm, 5, like a child, demonstrating how much he has learned. You hold up 5 back without understanding, and you think maybe that is understanding. Your wife starts telling pieces of the story at the market, names without blame, dates without venom, the shape of what water kept without suggesting who helped it. Women lean in, men listen from one stall away, and in the evenings you hear your sentences coming back from mouths you don't know, not exact, not wrong. The old woman returns to her chair by the window and naps with her mouth open like a baby bird because she has earned that in dignity. The bell sits on your shelf between the jar of salt and the radio, and when the radio crackles, the bell seems to look at it as if introducing itself. Sometimes late, a motorbike idles at the end of the lane.
It could be a neighbor.
It could be an omen. You make tea and do not go to the window. Once you step outside with a bag of trash and see the visor shape in the reflection of a puddle. When you look straight, puddle only. You smile anyway, because it is good to be the kind of person who sees things and keeps going. The footprints in the car dried, then darkened, then sank into the rubber like the memory of hands on a child's shoulders. Always there.
Not always heavy.
You stop checking them. You start cleaning the mat like a man who expects to carry living people and wants their shoes to be the worst of what his car knows. Once a week, you go to the steps with a lantern and a page copied from the ledger by your own hand. You read 5 names. You ring the bell twice. You throw nothing into the water. You bring the page home and pin it by the doorway where keys hang.
Friends ask what the papers are.
You say, people who did not get to be people loudly enough. They nod more often than they argue. When rain swells the river brown and fast, you feel it in your ribs, the way a healed bone feels storms. 3 faint taps return the last knock like courtesy. You tap your sternum back with 3 fingers and feel stupid and right. At night, sometimes, your wife dreams of the man with the visor. In the dreams, his feet still don't touch the ground. In the dreams, he stands by your window and does not knock. In the morning, she says, "He looked less empty." You say, "Good," and mean it. Your mother-in-law lives long enough to see a man at the tea stall say one of the names you read and then bow his head as if he had invented the bow. She laughs later, alone in her chair, a quiet sound that thinks it can fool the house. The house laughs back, a tick in the wood. The ledger on your shelf rests like a book and not like weather. The city, which has always carried its dead in its pockets, starts to carry them a little closer to the tongue. It is not a revolution. It is a habit. Habits build cities. Last one evening, months later, you drop a passenger at the riverside. He is tall and quiet and tips you with a thanks that sounds like a page turning. He asks to be left at the abandoned mansion's gate. You watch him in your mirror walking toward it, expecting him to slip through iron the way smoke does. He stops. He bends. He picks something up from the ground, small, silver, a fish scale maybe, and sets it carefully on the outside sill of the gate, not inside. He knocks once on the iron with his knuckles, twice on his chest with open hand, 3 times on the stone with his heel. Then he leaves, not toward the water, but toward the lane where shoes matter. You sit with your hands on the wheel and let a whole minute pass without doing anything to it. Then you turn the key and the engine behaves. The radio catches a station where a woman reads the names of donors to a flood fund, and you do not flinch at the sound of names said out loud by a stranger. At home, the window is just a window. The gate is just a gate. The river is the river, and you owe it nothing you cannot afford, which is how debt becomes a story instead of a chain. You lock the door once. Your wife laughs and unlocks it and locks it twice, because you can be brave and careful in the same life. You both stand listening. The house hums. Outside, the city picks up a plate and sets it down.
A dog changes its mind.
A scooter gives up. A bell somewhere rings because someone has chosen to make a sound. Inside your ribs, the knock answers itself. 3, steady, not a threat, a reminder. You lay your palm over your chest and count along. Stay, your wife says, and you do, you sleep. And if the river dreams you too tonight, it will have to dream your names as well.